Today on the news, everyone will likely be infected with coronavirus at some point, says a health official. Is that a reason to panic? Also, a second potential COVID-19 vaccine enters human testing, and the World Health Organization demands abortion be considered essential healthcare services during the coronavirus pandemic. But God forbid you go to church. We've got a lot to get into, and it starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by the one and only Mr. Stu Burkier, BlazeTV host of Stu Does America, which everyone should be subscribed to, if you're not already, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, also on YouTube. Was that good?
Listen to Sarah, she's smart.
Okay, I feel like I covered it.
You nailed it.
Okay, cool. Also, conservative commentator Grant Stinchfield, back in the house. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here.
You look dapper as always.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for risking your life for us.
Great to be here with Stu. He hasn't been here with us for a while.
It's been a while.
At least when
I feel like that was a little bit low-key dig, Stu.
Nick? No, I think
He hasn't been here at the table risking his life of, potential coronavirus. Just saying.
I think it's been good
That's
for
how I
me.
heard
I've gotten
it.
to come on more since he's...
So let's get into this is a California health official who said, now, I have my own opinions on this, but I'd like to get your thoughts on it. He said, obviously, this is something that has been repeated by multiple people at multiple points through this pandemic. But he said, obviously, the shelter-in-place order slows the progression down so that our hospitals are not overwhelmed. However, we're going to be at this a very, very long time. And, it has caused an economic disruption, but everyone will likely be infected with coronavirus at some point. Now, I didn't see any sort of, clarification of what at some point meant. I personally find that to be kind of important to the context of the story
Sure.
of maybe, being specific in saying everyone will be infected doesn't mean everyone is going to die or have long-lasting awful effects or even go to the hospital.
Right.
But this is what we're hearing is, everyone's going to be infected at some point.
Yeah.
Have fun.
I mean, is it because the question is, people will use that as like a scare tactic, right? I mean, in reality, it's more of just a realistic idea, right? We've all had the flu, right? At some point, and I know it's dangerous to say that it's like comparing it to the flu. Well, the flu's been around for 102 years. This is year one of coronavirus, so it is a lot more dangerous. Year 102 of coronavirus will probably be a lot more mild.
But they are similar in the fact that they are both infectious upper respiratory viruses.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Can I
Like
ask you a
they're
question?
so past.
Why are we constantly accused of being some kind of a heretic if we compare it to the flu? I get that it's deadly, coronavirus, but why can't you compare it to other diseases? But the left doesn't want you to do that whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I feel like they try to make it seem like if you're comparing it to the flu, you're downplaying it and you don't take it seriously. And I've never heard that to be the case whenever I've heard someone say that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the flu is really freaking serious. Like, 50,000 people die every year of it. It's not nothing.
And we don't shut down our economy, I would just like to point out.
We don't. However, I will say, it's also year 102. We have a vaccine that half of the population takes. It's like, it's a lot more known, right? This is much more of an unknown. And I can understand the difference. There is a difference there. If you remember, year 1 and 2 of the flu, pretty bad. 1918, 19, not so wonderful.
My biggest concern right now is that we're basing everything off of what New York City is going through. In New York City, there is no doubt in my mind they have a problem going on there with coronavirus, but that's not the same situation everywhere in America. And what government loves to do is this one-size-fits-all mentality. And so you've shut down economies everywhere because you're looking at New York. Well, the mainstream media thinks everything that happens in New York, that must be everywhere. The world revolves around New York City and Washington, D.C., and it just isn't the case. I mean, you look at New York, I was just driving in and I'm listening to the news. They've got 67 people in the Javits Center and 44 people on the Comfort, the big Navy ship. Now, I was told that the Army Corps of Engineers needed 3 days to rush those beds in there. We had to get the Comfort there right away, and it was going to be filled. Well, there's 44 people on the Comfort and 67 people in the Javits Center. Now, I know we had record deaths today in New York, but hospital admissions have come down and releases have come down.
Yeah, no, I mean, and look, it's good to be prepared, right? If it could have been, we don't know how bad it's going to be. We don't know where it's going to flare up. I think largely, there's some optimism that maybe this is sort of we're nearing the peak, right? But I mean, like, you're right. Record deaths today. Today will be the highest death total for the United States again. It's really freaking bad, right now. But you're right. New York is totally different. You know what's interesting is when you read the Imperial College model, which is the one, like the scariest one that everyone talked about, right?
Which we based
millions of deaths,
our entire response off of.
Right. And it's the one it's been much maligned, I would say. When you actually read it, it says specifically that we should talk about localized solutions because they're more efficient than a national plan, specifically talking about the United States. You don't hear that in the media all that often. The media is out there saying, Donald Trump, why aren't you doing a blanket national program? Well, first of all, there's a little thing called the Constitution. You can't just do those things. This is for the states to do. But I mean, you're right. Like the idea that Wyoming, with whatever they have, a couple hundred cases, and like not a ton of people spread out over a very wide area, or North Dakota has to have the same policies. Manhattan is bonkers, right? And I think everybody knows that. The idea here is, and the way that they talk about this, the experts talk about this, is like, look, if we can get a place where it's under control at some level, right? It's not under control in New York yet. They're getting there. We're seeing sorts of flare-ups in Miami and New Orleans, and Detroit especially is looking relatively scary right now. But like, you have to get that initial wave under control. And after that, like, there's no reason why we can't open things up and monitor very closely. And now that we have a better sense of what's to come and how to do this, and we've also bought ourselves time for more ventilators, for more masks, for all of these things, it should improve even if we don't have a vaccine in a week.
People need to use common sense. When I say people, I'm talking about government officials that have the ability to change our lives fundamentally. They need to use common sense. You name cities: Detroit, Miami, New York. These are all cities with huge amounts of international travel. I do believe, and huge immigrant populations. That is not a coincidence. I'm not slamming immigrants either.
No.
It's just, the fact is you've got a big population coming from out of the country. That's why those places are flaring up. You're not having a lot of international travel going to Jackson, Wyoming.
No, that's true. That's true. I mean, I think, look, that's how these things get sparked, right? It's why it was a good move at the beginning, and why experts all agree that Trump banning travel from China was a smart move. Banning it from Europe as well was a smart move at that time. And now you see that everyone on earth has adopted those same policies. This is the balance, right? It's such a tough one because, we see a lot of people who are, who are critical of Trump and what he's doing. He's either not going far enough or he's going too far. Like, I think he's looked at the evidence and tried to walk a very difficult line. We're talking, this is not even just like, these are deaths that are excruciating for these families, right? I mean, this is not just like some little thing. He is dealing with probably the hardest challenge any of us have ever seen in our lifetime for a president, right? You go back to World War II probably to find one that's on its equal. Like, this could be really, really, really bad.
9/11.
9/11, I think, is there too. Yeah,
and I would almost argue 9/11 was worse than this.
It's possible.
You may have more people die from this, but the overall effects of 9/11 fundamentally changing our lives for decades.
You don't think that's going to happen here, though? I think you're right. I was went through 9/11 and it was terrible.
I think we changed the way we do things. Look, we are way too dependent on China. We're dependent on our adversaries for our medical supply chain.
Yeah.
Look, I can tell you for the last week and a half, I've become an expert on a medical supply chain. I got involved in trying to source supplies from China. Every night I would make a deal, and I'm not trying to gouge anybody. I'm literally trying to move supplies to cities where it can help people.
That's great.
The prices change overnight. Last night, talking about gowns, that's the new hot commodity. China. These bastards, can I say it?
Well, you just did.
They double the price of medical gowns overnight because people are hammering for them. This is the country that caused this. This is the country that let this get out of control. They owe the entire nation an apology, and they're going to try to profit off of this, and not just profit, but outrageously, grotesquely gouge the world on this. They ought to be offered and say, hey, we'll give you this stuff. We're sorry.
They should be in ultimate apology mode right now.
And it's not free markets either, because the Chinese government says you have to charge this price to every factory. You're not going to sell this, or you're only going to make this product. You're not having factories compete against other factories for our business. It's the Chinese government controlling this to what? put their boot on the throat of America, and it is despicable.
I mean, Grant does bring up a good point that, there may be some short-term pain involved in trying to figure out what we do and how we bring these issues back to America so that we can manufacture them there or here and we can get them here. But overall, I think we'd agree that we shouldn't have China handling our medications, right? Like, what was it? The antibiotics, that it was like, oh, well, now there's a shortage of antibiotics here because China was being hit hard by a virus. And it's like, wait a second, why do we have them in charge of our medications?
Yeah. No,
what could possibly go wrong?
Fundamentally, this goes back to something that's, I think, blatantly obvious to every single person on Earth now, but was very obvious to a lot of conservatives and libertarians before this, which is the government does way too much. They should be prepared for the 5 or 6 things they're supposed to do, which I would say guarding against a global pandemic is a great example of what government can actually do, right? There's no reason we don't have enough gowns and masks and ventilators. It's embarrassing. George W. Bush was pretty much obsessed with pandemics. He read a book about the 1918 influenza. You may have covered that this week, where he went on and really became obsessed with it and got the government going on this in his second term. And it was eaten away by Obama during that administration. And we lost that ability to be prepared for that type of thing. There are 99% of things that will go on, the free market can easily just solve. And you're seeing even in this situation, the market, the private industry has come together. People have done incredible things. The testing in and of itself, we went from nothing to hundreds of thousands a day. When we're engaged, we're right. But like, there are certain things we need to be prepared with this stuff. It's ridiculous we weren't prepared before this.
The flaws in the system is that you need a guy like me, and there's 8, 10, 20,000 other guys like me who now jumped in this to solve a supply chain issue that the current supply chain people could not solve themselves. It's like energy independence. When we were reliant on the Middle East for our oil, we were screwed. This is, in some respects, the very same situation. We've been reliant on China for our medical supplies, and where do we end up? We end up screwed.
Yeah. Before we go, I want to bring up the second potential COVID-19 vaccine. It has entered phase 1 clinical human testing after the FDA accepted an application from Inovio Pharmaceuticals. Now, this is backed by Bill Gates, for those of you who care. I know there are a lot of you out there who would like to know that information. And it will enroll up to 40 healthy adult volunteers in Philadelphia, where the screening of the potential participants has already begun. You're from that area, right? Maybe you have some family members who want to go get a experimental vaccine.
I don't think I have any family in that area, but I mean, look, this.
Well, I mean, I don't know why else you'd be an Eagles fan. Is the only reason.
That is, no one knows the answer to that. So
Okay.
that's inexplicable.
Just thought I'd point that out.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm actually not from there, so it doesn't make any sense. But I will say that look,
It just has bad taste.
That's possible. That's definitely no one's ever accused me of the opposite. But I would say that look, these things are. This is the long-term answer. If they can come up with something that's safe and effective, this is the pie in the sky down the line. But it's like we really are at the point now where we're just trying to buy time. I mean, like that's why. What's so promising about something like hydroxychloroquine that the president brings up, and look, the dozens of other drugs that they're trying to test at the same time, even if it's just treatment, if you could just take the person who's about to go on a ventilator and back them off just a couple from a 9 illness to a 7 or a 6 illness, we're going to save tons of lives, and we're going to be able to get the economy started again. It's just coming in here. We're in here naked, right? We got no defenses right now. I mean, you've got a jacket on, but no pants. He's bottomless
underneath.
But yeah, exactly.
What happens under the table stays under the table.
Oh
Okay.
boy! Oh boy!
Grant,
it's
your
from the
thoughts.
pregnant lady.
What are your thoughts on the vaccine? They say that it could be available. I want to say they said by they could produce as much as 1 million doses of the vaccine by the end of the year if the trials are successful. That is a thing. I mean, if that's true,
It's impressive.
1 million doses by the end of the year.
And usually, like, they would want to see, okay, we test something, yes, this is the right thing, let's produce it. What they're doing now is they're just burning
producing
money,
it,
right?
yeah.
They're producing it as they test it, which they might come up with 5 vaccines that don't work at all and realize, okay, this is not the answer, and they're gonna have millions, maybe billions of doses of this. It's gonna be fascinating. But I mean, private industry has done this. I mean, they've come up and they said, look, we'll burn money. What do you need us to do?
Yeah.
It's been impressive.
Yeah, Grant.
You said I had the last word a long time ago.
I know.
I said last word on this topic.
On the topic, okay.
Yeah.
Look, the fact that Bill Gates is involved in this, all this stuff makes me so freaking skeptical of this whole thing. I mean, it really does. Now, add in the fact that this is the billionaire who pushes all kinds of liberal policies that are going to somehow take advantage of free market principles and come up with a vaccine that saves everybody. You can't write this stuff in Hollywood. You can't write it.
Yeah. All right. Coming up, we've got the World Health Organization that determining that abortion clinics should stay open because they are essential care. We've also got Alyssa Milano and Rose McGowan at odds in what is like the hottest Charmed reboot ever. It's totally must-see TV. You got to tune in. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Mobile. So now is the time, now that we see all of this encroaching big government liberal policies just kind of like swooping in to save us all from a pandemic. Now is the time to make sure that we are sticking together, those of us who are conservative. And what better way to do that than to make sure that the bill that you're paying your cell phone provider every month, that money that you're paying from your hard work that you do is not going to the same liberal causes that you are fighting against. So Planned Parenthood, gun control, those are just a couple of the organizations of the ideals that your cell phone carrier oftentimes is they're donating the money that you pay to those organizations. You don't have to do that. Go to Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile, they're a bunch of like-minded conservatives, and they will donate a portion of your money that they are getting from your bill every month to the causes that you believe in. So, Second Amendment, not killing babies in the womb. That's also like a thing that they believe in as well. It's so hard to come by, but again, we have to stick together in this. Right now, you can customize a family plan for $25, $35, $45, or $55. I mean, that depends on how many people you have in your family, I guess. But they will never charge hidden fees. You can port your number right over. It's super easy. All you got to do is go to patriotmobile.com/news. You will get free activation plus a free gift right now if you go to patriotmobile.com/news. We talked about this yesterday on the show, but so we said yesterday, looks like the Wisconsin primary is going to still happen unless someone intervenes. Something happens. Well, no one intervened, and it is happening. Let's see. Who is this? I can't even pull up my notes right now. My computer's not working. But yeah, Mandela Barnes, I see. But she has something to do with the government. And she said, "Good morning and welcome to the S Show." Today's episode has been produced by the Supreme Court, directed by the incomparable Speaker and Senate Majority Leader duo. Buckle up, this one is sure to disappoint. So it's still happening, and last I read, there were lines, so you go long lines and you're like, oh, there's a big turnout, but there were apparently a lot of places that were closed as well.
Yeah, I've read somewhere that, there's like normally 140, I think it's Milwaukee had 140 different places to vote normally, and this time they had 5. So can you imagine like how many people are going to the wrong place? And
yeah.
I mean, and plus, if you've seen the lines, they're all standing, of course, 6 feet away from each other. So the lines, even
2
if
miles,
yeah, they're super long, even if there's not that many people.
Right.
I mean, it's insane.
But I mean, that was the headline. Like, legitimately, I read the headline and it was just like long lines, but some closures. Well, no kidding, there's long lines. By the way, Mandela Barnes is the Wisconsin lieutenant governor. So, the governor issued... I was wondering
why she didn't... the one person she didn't blame was the governor. So that
right, yeah. Well, the governor, I guess, issued an executive order to postpone the primary, and then the Wisconsin Supreme Court overturned the decision.
It's been a great example of government not being able to do the most basic thing. Everyone on earth knows this is not the time to send people out to the polls, right? Like, everybody knows this is not the time.
But doesn't it really just show kind of their motives? Really, when it comes down to it, that they've issued a shelter in place, right? So they're taking this pandemic seriously enough to tell all of their citizens you cannot go out unless it is for essential activities, while at the same time
voting for me is an essential activity.
To me, I'm like, this is so transparent. I would be so pissed if I lived in Wisconsin, not because they were telling me to go out and vote, but because they were showing me their true colors. Like, they don't give a crap about me.
Yeah, no.
They just want to use me for my vote.
Yeah, I mean, they did fight back and forth. It's seemingly like they both kind of said, both sides of the House or whatever, the Senate and the House, there were saying like, we need to get this canceled, but they couldn't agree on the terms and they couldn't agree on how to do it, and they fought back and forth until the last second. And the governor stepped in and said, "All right, we're not doing this," and the Supreme Court overruled it. It's just, I mean, it's a cluster, right?
It just goes to politics is behind everything, including keeping people safe. And Sarah, you nailed it. These politicians, and you know, in many respects, it goes for all sides of the aisle. If you get to be a power-hungry politician, and many people change when they get into office, they become power-hungry, they don't care about the people. They only care about their own hide, and it's not about keeping people safe. And then it becomes about politics and who can screw the other side, when right now this is a time when really you need to put politics aside and just make sure you're keeping people safe. But everybody is exploiting this coronavirus. Everybody. I saw an anti-vaccine guy, whatever you say about vaccines, right? But there is a huge crowd that is an anti-vaccine crowd. They were exploiting coronavirus, that the government's going to come and mandate your vaccine when this comes out, and they're going to do. That all may be true, but it just goes to show me that every single agenda in America today is using the coronavirus to somehow gain a political advantage.
That's a great point. I mean, even when it comes down to, you know, the government deciding to close gun stores.
Yes, of course.
Well, that's not essential. I mean, God forbid there's looting. You can't have ammo to protect yourselves from people coming to your house and trying to steal your stuff.
If you're talking about essential, maybe starting with your constitutionally guaranteed rights would be an interesting place to start with that list.
The what guaranteed rights?
Yeah, I'll explain it later. It's hard. It's a long word.
Okay. Speaking of that, let me see if I can find it. The World Health Organization. Here it is. This is what happens when you're in a pandemic and you don't have cards. It takes a second to scroll, but the World Health Organization has demanded, I like the word choice here, demanded. That abortion be considered essential healthcare services during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, we've seen this played out at the state level, right? That there have been certain states that they've gone back and forth on whether or not abortion clinics should remain open. It's happened here in Texas that they went back and forth on it. But now the World Health Organization is stepping in, which is interesting to me that they think that they're still a credible source right in this very moment after they're basically just carrying China's water. But that's neither here nor there.
Can I make one point?
Please.
Please. The World Health Organization does not get to demand anything from the United States of America. We are a sovereign nation, and I am tired of the World Health Organization. I'm tired of the United Nations and all these other groups thinking they can dictate to us what is best for us. Who screwed this whole thing up from the start?
Yeah.
They don't get to demand anything, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy that they think that they have, you know, the superiority to tell people what to do in this situation, but they're even saying that. This is what's crazy to me. Even if someone tests positive, a woman tests positive for coronavirus, that should not mean that they should not be able to go get an abortion. Even if the procedure might put both patient and caregivers at risk, women's choices and rights to sexual and reproductive health care, it's not a thing, should be irrespective of whether or not she has a suspected or confirmed COVID-19 infection.
Incredible. I mean, look, the World Health Organization, sometimes you need to understand where you are in the world. It's like, you know, now is not the time to go out for a leading role if you're Kevin Spacey, right? Like, you know, you step back and you say, maybe I got to take a little bit of time off from acting. You know, the same thing goes here. Like, World Health Organization has botched this from the start. They've been running interference for China, who has been lying to the world. They won't even admit Taiwan is a place. You know, like, these are basic things that should not be that difficult. You know, look, World Health Organization did a good job with smallpox. Can't remember what they've done since. So, you know, like, this is not the time. I mean, this should be the time where the World Health Organization should shine. And instead, what they're doing is they are kissing the butt of China, and they assisted this terrible outbreak all around the world by taking Chinese propaganda and just throwing it out to everyone without questioning it. And look, we all understand that China is lying, not then, now about what's going on in this country. They don't have 0 cases in a country of 1.3 billion people. Come on. We all understand that that's not true, but the World Health Organization continues to run interference.
We can all agree that abortion is a political issue, correct?
Sure.
Why is the World Health Organization playing on that field? Why are you wading into one of the hottest debated political issues on earth unless that's what you do, unless you are a liberal organization willing to push propaganda and with an ultimate goal of dictating to America?
I mean, it does speak to your point earlier, Grant, that everyone with a political agenda is trying to use coronavirus to their advantage.
It has to be one of the most exploited viruses in the history of viruses.
It is one of those things, too, that I haven't heard anyone who's had, like, a prior viewpoint changed by it. It's just like, you know what? That means we need universal health care. It's like everyone, whatever you believed before just now means it's now more important. It's because of this. And this is what, Glenn has his book out today, Arguing with Socialists, and it's like that's one of the things he goes into is like, we all know coming out of this, the left is going to try to exploit this for every little piece of turf they can grab, and we better be prepared for it.
Well, and oftentimes pieces of turf that they've already grabbed.
Yes.
So how do you take that back? I'm not sure that's going to work out very well. Still to come, Alyssa Milano decides that there is this thing that we should listen to called due process in this country. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Yeah, due process. It's apparently a thing now. We'll get into that. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Home Title Lock. So there were these retired FBI agents who came into the studio and actually, Stu, did they actually end up stealing your home's title?
Well, basically, they went through. They just sent me an email actually. Before I even knew I was meeting with them, and they're just like, hey, and it was like an email. It just had my home like title and like the name crossed out, and someone else had signed it, and there's like a notary stamp on it. I'm like, what the heck is this? I had no idea. And then 10 minutes later, I get an email. The people from Home Title Lock are going to meet with you and explain how to steal your home title. And I'm like, oh, now I understand. I was freaked out for a minute, because it is really easy, and they are able to, this is something that, people are doing. I keep saying this. It's like if you're in quarantine right now, so are the hackers.
Yes.
They're bored as you are. They're just like
Idle
trying to get your information. And if they get it, they can take your title. They can do a little paperwork, and then they can borrow money against your equity. And look, you're still living in the house maybe, but you've got years of legal nonsense and a bunch of money to spend to even try to get it back, and probably won't.
Yeah.
It's a terrible process, and HometitleLock.com can protect you from it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because you would think, well, my bank could protect me from that. Well, I'm enrolled in this identity theft program, and that definitely protects me from that. No, they don't. They don't, and you don't realize it. Don't be one of the people who realizes it when it's too late. Go to, as Stu said, HometitleLock.com. You can enter your address and see if you've already been a victim. You're not going to know until it's too late unless you go to HometitleLock.com. Use promo code Y, and we've got you 1 month of risk-free protection. Like I said, go to Home Title Lock, enter your address, see if you've already been a victim. HometitleLock.com, promo code Y, W-H-Y. Actress Alyssa Milano, you may know her from the award-winning series Charmed.
I know her really well, by the way.
Really?
Oh my God, I was her nemesis. Working at the NRA, she used to go after me.
That's right. You told a story one time.
Oh gosh, nonstop she would go after me. So this is so hilarious. I can't wait to hear the story about her. But I have a theory about Alyssa Milano and why she goes after me. She's like a third grader. I always think she had a huge crush on me. I think that's what it was.
I could see it in her eyes.
She would just attack me. I'm convinced.
I mean, at least you want to be convinced that Alyssa.
Her politics are off the charts, but she's cute.
She's cute.
Yeah.
I was totally in love with her in the Who's the Boss days.
I remember those.
I seriously was.
I remember this admittance.
It's true. It's very.
But doesn't it ruin it for you that she's so insufferable now?
Yes, it would, because I would say when I was 7 years old, if you would have just given me a deal on the table to marry Alyssa Milano and be with her for the rest of my life, I would have taken it.
Yeah.
I would have taken it at that time.
Done deal.
That would have been a terrible mistake.
Or you could have saved the world from her harassment. You probably could have convinced her.
You could have convinced her, or you would be in a very unhappy marriage right now.
Yes. Oh, gosh.
Very, very unhappy. Well, Alyssa Milano has just come out. Well, she's been endorsing Joe Biden, and she's been pressed recently because there were some sexual assault allegations that came out recently about Joe Biden. Now, probably you may have heard us mention them on the show. We haven't given them too much clout. We continue to say alleged because there's not really anything to suggest there's any evidence for it. There are things that need to, I think, be played out in order for these accusations to be determined credible. However, if you're going by the mainstream media standards, certainly Alyssa Milano standards, you got to believe all women. You got to run with every accusation against any man that has ever happened. And a man is to be presumed guilty until determined innocent. Well, not so anymore when it comes to Joe Biden, Alyssa Milano's candidate of choice. She was just recently on a radio show, Andy Cohen Live, and she explained she's come to some crazy realization about, I don't know, due process in this country for men. Listen.
I have not publicly said anything about this. And if you remember, it kind of took me a long time to publicly say anything about Harvey as well. Okay. Because I believe that even though we should believe women, and that is an important thing, and what that statement really means is, like, for so long, the go-to has been not to believe them. So really we have to sort of societally change that mindset to believing women, but that does not mean at the expense of not, giving men their due process and investigating situations.
I like that.
And giving, it's got to be fair in both directions.
How did she come up with this new term?
I like that.
Due process. Who would have thought that existed? What a great...
Is that okay for guns too? They want to take away due process when it comes to guns, going in and seizing people's firearms.
Now don't be silly, Grant.
She's a hypocrite. This one.
That's there's so much.
You see her dance around it, though. She kind of said what she wanted to say, which is we need to believe women first, but not if it's my candidate. If it's my candidate, we can't do that. Yeah. But any time else, then we'll believe the women.
What she's describing there is the conservative standard, right? Like the conservative standard. Yes, all women should be taken seriously. It's different than all women should be believed. That's what we've been saying this entire time. They should be taken seriously with their allegations. It's ridiculous that at one point in history they were getting dismissed routinely. Not okay. Not okay. This is much more consistent with our standards. She just didn't apply that at all to Kavanaugh. Yeah. Did she apply that to Roy Moore? No. Did she apply that to any conservative? Of course, the answer to that is no. It's also, I find it fascinating because Andy Cohen is on this clip. He's the guy from Bravo, and he's like, whoa, what a wonderful idea. He's like blown away by this idea that you actually look into facts and do due process. Well, interesting part about this is he was accused of sexual harassment in 2017. Now, look, I don't know that there's any credibility to this claim, but like when you go through something like that, all of a sudden you say, wow, maybe we should actually take these things seriously. And I think in a way, Alyssa Milano is going through this, right? Her guy now, Joe Biden, is going through this. And her initial excuse is hilarious. She's like, well, look, I took a long time to say anything about Harvey Weinstein, too. Oh, you mean the guy with the clearest case against him, right?
You took a long time.
Dozens and dozens of accusers
and a Democratic donor who affected your industry. But you took a long time. We should give you a break on that one. Not a good argument.
Well, at least she's consistent.
Yeah, right. Yes.
In her hypocrisy, I think is what she meant by that.
She has a history of hypocrisy. Yeah. So one of the reasons why she was so mad at me is during the NRA convention, which was here in Dallas. So I was broadcasting for NRA TV. And we had my buddy Chuck Holt, who was an Army Ranger out there with the protesters that Alyssa Milano was leading. And Chuck comes back to me and says, hey, Grant, she's got armed security. She's got armed security? We're at an NRA convention. Why does she get armed security and she's lobbying for all of us to disarm ourselves? So he got video of her armed security and started asking about, well, why is your guard armed? Most people can't afford that. Oh, but let me tell you something about setting somebody off. She was not happy about just being exposed as a hypocrite. Of
course not.
But she does a good job of exposing herself as a hypocrite.
She does. No one really has to do it for her. Even her old friend Rose McGowan, which I guess they're not friends anymore. They starred together on, like I said, the award-winning Charmed series. She retweeted Alyssa Milano saying she's still endorsing Joe Biden and tweeting out the clip you just heard. Rose McGowan said, "You are a fraud. This is about holding the media accountable. You go after Trump and Kavanaugh saying believe victims. You are a lie. You have always been a lie. The corrupt DNC is in on the smear job of Tara Reade. So are you. Shame," in all caps. Now, I will say, at least for Rose McGowan, she's consistent.
Yeah, consistently wrong.
Consistently wrong, but consistent.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's hard to find the good person in this exchange.
She took the Trump cadence, though. Do you notice she took the Trump cadence in that tweet? Shame.
Yeah. You were a lie. You've always been a lie. I like that. It's true, but it's like, the standard she's arguing for, right, is not the correct standard. Right? Like, what Alyssa Milano
Neither of them are.
Right, yeah. I mean, like, this is the thing. When I look at this, and there's the Kavanaugh standard and there's the Biden standard, right? The Kavanaugh standard is everyone accuses them, everyone acts as if it's completely serious, and we talk about it all the time on media, despite having no evidence. And the Biden is like, it comes out against, a guy, and we basically don't even look at it, and, maybe there's a couple media reports about it. Like, the Biden standard is the better standard, right? Mm-hmm. Like, as much as I don't like Joe Biden, I think he'd be a terrible president, but this is closer to the way the media should treat this, which is like, hey, you want to have an investigative journalist from the New York Times dig in deep and see if they can find real evidence and put it on their news pages, not their opinion pages, but their news pages with a real news story, and find something? Well, fine. If some conservative journalist wants to go out there and dig deep into this and find something really, really credible, maybe that's an issue to go with, but to just throw these things out and act as if they're all supposed to be taken equally seriously is insanity. And the Biden thing, like, I don't know if this is credible. It may be. I mean, remember, it was a liberal journalist who broke it. It was not a conservative. Right. They were talking about this, and they interviewed her about this. But, like, an interview of an accuser is not enough. You got to have a lot more than that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just still amazed at this new term, due process. I can't wait to read more about it. Back in a minute.
I don't know exactly what it means. I mean,
well, if only there had been a document that had addressed it.
Yeah, like they should have written it down. They should have written it down.
All right, we're going to do something fun. It's coronavirus related, so I feel like I can get away with it.
We're always fun here.
Well, thanks. But coronavirus this, coronavirus that. I know you guys are tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of talking about it. But there was a new study that just came out. It came across my email today. Actually, I was on my way into the studio, and I was like, I emailed our producer. I was like, oh, you have to include this in the show. We have to talk about it. New study from alcohol.org, promise I'm not drunk, says more than a third of respondents believe they will drink more alcohol than usual while in self-isolation. And let's see, 1 in 5 Texans admit to drinking alcohol during work hours while in lockdown. Hawaii, they did it state by state. Hawaii was the most likely to drink at home during working hours, 67%. And Arkansas says they are the least likely at 8%. Now, I feel like you don't want to self-incriminate here.
So I'm a Texan.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to think I'm a Texan. I've been here a long time.
We'll adopt you.
Look, the bottom line is that 1 in 5 number is way low. Okay?
It's way higher than that.
You drive up north of the border to Oklahoma. We got a lot of Baptists here. You're not supposed to drink. You're not supposed to go gamble. And all the license plates are Texas license plates up by the casinos. Okay? So some survey, they're telling them they're not drinking. We have never gone through so much vodka in our lives being locked down at the house.
It's so funny. 35% of Americans, not Texans, but just looking at Americans, 35% say they are likely to drink more alcohol while self-isolating. I think, Grant, what you said is correct for this, too. That's way higher than 35% for all of Americans.
Oh, totally.
What else is there to do?
Yeah, I know.
Unless you're like me.
That's what I said to my wife, when she said, are you having another drink? And I said, yeah, what else is there to do?
What else is there to do?
It's kind of like how it feels right now.
I said to my fiance, who's watching the show from over at the producer's booth, I said, is it bad that I can't wait till 5:30 when I can pour myself another drink?
Why wait till 5:30 would be my,
I have standards.
Yeah.
Well, we go till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, that's fair. No, it's funny because I have people who, they know from just watching on the show and my videos that I do love wine. And they're like, well, why don't you grab some more wine? Or why? I'm sure you're drinking wine. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Because I picked the worst time to get pregnant ever. It's horrible. All I do is sit on the couch and watch TV.
Yeah.
I'm drinking like, let me tell you how many different flavors of sparkling water I have in my fridge. A ton. But you get bored of that eventually.
Yes.
It gets real old.
Very, very true.
Do you think the they talk about the freshman 15? Do you think the COVID 15 is?
I think the
is real?
COVID-19.
The COVID-19
is for the amount of weight that you're going to gain by the end of this, I think.
So I'm going to lose 10 pounds before this is the end of this? Okay. Because COVID 29. No.
I'm just going to tell you what a rebel I am, okay? Because people are going to be so mad when they hear this. And it goes to your video that you did about everybody breaking the little COVID laws.
Yeah.
Well, I went for a little run this morning.
Yep.
And I ran down to the park. Now I can't go to the gym, and I love going to the gym. So you know what I did?
What?
I'm a rebel. I did a whole 30-minute pull-up routine on the playground. And do you know they had caution tape all over the? And you know what? I did it anyway. I figure they're clean because nobody else is on.
It's true. It's true. Wow. What a rebel. I can't believe you just admitted that on national television.
Yep. You're one of these guys, though. This is Chris Lash, Dana Lash's husband, tweeted
Good
something
friend of
like,
mine, too.
yeah, I love Chris. But he's like, well, I used to love him until this tweet. He's like, I'm coming out of this quarantine ripped. And he's like, I'm working out every day. That's like, all right, Chris, stop shaming us. We got it. You're an overachiever.
I mean, I will say it does make me feel better because as I'm gaining weight, everyone else will be gaining weight too. So it will make me feel like I'm less fat. Everyone else will be fat too.
In moments of crisis too, you think of like, okay, we gotta store food, and it's like we're going the opposite way. It's a typical American way. We're like, we're gonna eat more, right? Like my wife's like, I guess we should cook at home tonight. And I'm like, well, what if the food dries? We better order food while they're still open.
That's what I say.
Pizza places might be closed soon, so we better get the pizza now.
My husband prepared dinner the other night. We had dinner there, and I did not even ask him. I just went online and ordered dessert from Uber Eats and was like, I just did a thing. I just ordered, I don't know why. Dessert. We didn't need it. I'm totally full, but I just wanted bread pudding. So
Are you going to be one of these expecting moms that uses the pregnancy as excuse just to go dessert every night?
No. And I'm working out every day. So,
like Chris.
Well, yeah, but except I have no choice but to gain some weight, so I'm just making sure it's minimal. But it's hard when you're sitting in front of the TV, you're sitting on the couch, there's nothing else to frickin' do.
Yeah, if you don't have a home gym or something, yes, everybody's like releasing like a 20-minute like online video you can do at home without equipment, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah, especially when you have kids running around. So, all right, we gotta go. We'll be back.
Bread pudding.
Oh, bread pudding sounds
so good with bourbon sauce. All right, yesterday's poll, how are you keeping sane during the quarantine? Let's see. The choices were playing board games, going on walks, eating, or all of the above. Most of you said all of the above, 52%, all of the above. Going on walks, 22% of you. Eating, I got to believe that the answers were skewed from the all of the above because more of you would have said eating.
Right, but a quarter of this population is saying they're not eating at all during quarantine. What's happening? They're starving to death.
They're doing all of the above.
Certainly people are going for walks. When I'm out, it's Sunday, springtime.
I've never seen so many of my neighbors in my life. I'm like, where do you live? I've never seen you before. And apparently no one likes playing board games. 2.3% of you said playing board games. Yeah, we like playing the board games too right now. All right, today's poll, who should Trump appoint to be his new press secretary, which I don't know why this. He already picked one.
Yeah, I did pick one.
I'm not going to read this poll. I'm not going to read this poll.
Kayleigh
McEnany.
McEnany, yeah, her.
I think he should pick her too.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy. Do you think he should pick her too?
Great.
That's crazy.
Great.
Oh my gosh, it worked.
Before we go, Stu, Glenn is doing a book signing tonight.
Yes,
what's going on there?
7 p.m. Eastern. Go to glennbeckbooksigning.com, which would be a very handy place, and it'll get you to the right spot. You can ask questions. You can get signed books. He's going to be signing them live and answering your questions. I'm going to be co-hosting it with him. It's a lot of fun. His book is out today, so go buy it. Great way to get prepared because once we come out of this thing, man, we are going to need to fight battles. I'm telling you that. Arguing with Socialists. It is available wherever you get your books. Make sure that you do that. glennbeckbooksigning.com.